Some of you are holding so tightly to what is killing you that your knuckles have turned white. You think that if you release it, you will fall apart. But hear me, the thing you refuse to let go of is the very thing that is drowning you. You cling to broken idols as though they could save you, when all they do is weigh you down. You know what it is, that bitterness, that secret sin, that relationship you've elevated above truth, that fear that has become your master. You keep feeding it, nurturing it, excusing it, yet it has never once given you peace. It has only chained your soul. Letting go is not weakness, it is surrender, and surrender is not defeat, it is freedom. But not the kind of freedom this world lies about. I'm talking about the freedom that comes when you finally stop negotiating with the darkness and step into the light with empty hands. Some of you are waiting for the feeling to come before you release what you're holding. But feelings are terrible leaders. Truth must lead you, and truth has been calling you for a long time now, calling you to drop the weight, to turn from what has poisoned your heart, to stop trying to control what was never yours to carry. You have prayed for strength, but strength often comes asterisk asterisk after asterisk asterisk obedience, not before it. Letting go is the act of faith that makes room for the strength you've been asking for. You will not see what is waiting on the other side until your hands are finally open. Stop pretending you can hold on to your chains and walk in freedom at the same time. Stop imagining that you can cling to your past and step into your future in the same breath. There is a moment when a person must decide, truly decide, to release what is false so they can grasp what is real. It's time, not tomorrow, not when everything is convenient, not when you feel brave enough. Now, let go of what is killing you so you can finally live. True freedom begins when you finally release what is weighing you down, because as long as your hands cling to what is breaking you, you cannot grasp what is meant to heal you. This idea sounds simple when spoken aloud, almost poetic, almost obvious, but in reality, it is one of the hardest truths a person will ever confront. People do not cling to burdens because they enjoy suffering. They hold on because they are afraid of what life will look like without the familiar weight. They hold on because pain, even when destructive, can become comfortable in its predictability. They hold on because letting go requires trust. Trust in what comes next. Trust in what will fill the empty space. Trust that release will not lead to collapse. But true freedom is not found in the grip of fear. It is found in the courage to open your hand. When something weighs on the soul, it rarely announces itself with loud declarations. Most burdens enter quietly, subtly, like a shadow creeping across the ground. A bitterness that started with one wound, a habit that began as a small compromise, a relationship that seemed harmless until it demanded parts of you that were never meant to be given away, a fear that whispered lies until those lies became the lens through which you saw everything. These things settle into the heart, and before long, they shape the way you think, the way you decide, even the way you breathe. You don't notice the heaviness at first. You just know you feel tired in a way sleep cannot fix. And so many walk through life exhausted, not because life is inherently unbearable, but because they are carrying what was never meant to be carried. They drag the past behind them like a chain. They clutch their failures as though the future must bow to them. They grip tightly to control, imagining that constant tension is the only way to feel safe. All the while, the weight grows heavier, and freedom becomes something they speak about but never experience. To release that weight requires honesty, deep, uncomfortable honesty. You must face the truth of what you are holding, you must name it, you must confront it. That kind of honesty is frightening because it strips away the excuses. It takes away the illusion of control. It forces you to confront the reality that some things in your life are not just inconvenient, they are enslaving, but you cannot be free while refusing to acknowledge your chains. What makes the burden so powerful is not always the burden itself, but the lies attached to it. Lies such as, if I let go, I'll have nothing left, or this is just who I am now, there's no changing it, or if I release this, I'll lose part of myself. But these lies are the bars of the cage. They create a false comfort, a counterfeit safety. The truth is that holding on is what drains you. The truth is that you lose yourself far more by clinging to what destroys you than by releasing it. The truth is that freedom is not found in possession, but in surrender. Letting go is not passive. It is a choice made again and again, sometimes every hour, sometimes every minute. It is choosing not to feed the bitterness even when the memory resurfaces. It is choosing to walk away from a temptation that used to control you. It is choosing to forgive, not because the wound wasn't deep, but because the weight of hatred has become unbearable. It is choosing to trust, not because every fear has vanished, but because you refuse to let fear decide your future. The process of letting go often begins with a moment when you realize you cannot continue as you are. A moment when the cost of holding on becomes clearer than the fear of releasing. That moment may come quietly in the middle of the night, when your thoughts feel heavier than your body, or it may come during a conversation that unexpectedly cuts through all your defenses, or it may come through pain, through the collapse of something you thought would never break. But in that moment, a truth rises to the surface. You were not made to live like this. You were not meant to be crushed. You were not meant to spend your days surviving instead of living. When you begin to let go, the emptiness feels strange. It is like setting down a weight you've carried for so long that your muscles forget how to rest. You feel unsteady, vulnerable, exposed, and for a time you might even miss the burden, not because it was good, but because it was familiar. Freedom always feels unfamiliar at first, but do not confuse unfamiliar with unsafe. What is unfamiliar might be the very thing your soul has been longing for. As you walk away from what once held you, you begin to notice something unexpected. Space to breathe, space to think clearly, space to grow. When your hands are not clutching the past, they are open to receive something new. When your mind is not preoccupied with what once wounded you, it becomes free to dream again. When your heart is no longer tied to what drained you, it finds strength to love in healthier ways. This is the beginning of freedom, not a loud, explosive moment, but a gradual unfolding, a gentle strengthening, a slow rebuilding of who you are without the weight that once defined you. Many fear that letting go means becoming empty or directionless, but in truth, letting go makes room for transformation. Picture a tree in autumn. Its leaves fall, not because the tree is dying, but because it is preparing for new growth. If the leaves clung stubbornly, refusing to release, the tree would suffer under the weight of what was meant only for a season. The act of release is not the act of losing. It is the act of preparing for what comes next. Just as the tree trusts the process of shedding, so must you trust the process of release. What is meant for your growth will not require you to carry unbearable burdens. What is meant for your future will not demand your suffering as proof of worth. What is meant for your peace will not weigh your soul down. Letting go is a declaration that you believe there is something better ahead than the pain behind. Some people will not understand your release. They may question your decision. They may urge you to hold on, not because they see clearly, but because they are afraid to release their own burdens. Do not let their fear become yours. True freedom sometimes requires disappointing the expectations of others. It requires choosing health over approval, clarity over comfort, growth over familiar pain. Your life is not measured by how consistently you cling to what hurts you, but by how courageously you walk away from what no longer serves your becoming. But letting go is not only about releasing what is harmful. It can also mean releasing what is good but no longer meant for your journey. Some seasons end not because they were wrong, but because they are complete. Some relationships shift not because of failure, but because of growth. Some dreams fade not because they were foolish, but because they led you exactly where you needed to be. Letting go in these moments is not an act of rejection, but an act of trust. Trust that endings have a purpose. Trust that new beginnings require space. Trust that the story is still unfolding. True freedom is not the absence of responsibility, nor is it the ability to do whatever you want without consequence. True freedom is the ability to live unchained, to move forward without the weight of the past strangling your steps. It is the clarity that comes when your mind is no longer divided between who you were and who you are becoming. It is the strength that rises when you are no longer pouring energy into hiding your wounds or protecting your fears. Freedom is not loud, it is steady. It is not reckless, it is grounded. It is not shallow, it is deeply rooted in truth. To reach that freedom, you must be willing to let go of the lies that have shaped your identity. You are not defined by what you lost. You are not limited by your failures. You are not imprisoned by your past unless you choose to hold on to its chains. Release allows you to see yourself clearly again, not as someone broken beyond repair, but as someone capable of rising, changing, rebuilding. Letting go is a journey that requires patience. You will have days when the weight feels like it's creeping back onto your shoulders. You will have moments when old fears whisper again. But each time you choose release over grasping, you grow stronger. Each time you choose truth over fear, you become lighter. Each time you choose courage over comfort, you reclaim more of yourself. Nothing that is weighing you down is worth the cost of your peace. Nothing that drains your strength is worth sacrificing your future. Nothing that fills you with dread is worth clinging to out of habit. Release is the doorway to the life you have not yet experienced. And on the other side of that doorway is a freedom that is not fragile or fleeting, but steady, grounding, and transformative. True freedom begins the moment you stop gripping the chains and finally allow them to fall. It begins the moment you trust that your hands were meant to hold something better than the weight that has kept you from rising. It begins the moment you believe that release is not the end of your story, but the beginning of a new one, lighter, clearer, and filled with the kind of strength that only comes after letting go. Letting go is an act of faith and obedience because it requires you to release your grip on what feels certain, what feels familiar, and what you believe you can control. It demands trusting something beyond your own understanding, surrendering your plans, your timing, and your assumptions about how life should unfold. Letting go is not simply about dropping something from your hands. It is about releasing something from your heart. And the heart does not loosen its hold easily. It clings, it resists, it argues, it negotiates, and it tries to reshape reality to avoid surrender. But obedience requires laying down the illusion of control and acknowledging that holding on often becomes the very barrier to growth, healing, and transformation. When a person chooses to let go, it is rarely because the circumstances are ideal or the path ahead is clear. More often, it is done in the midst of uncertainty, when the future seems hazy, when the cost of surrender feels high, and when every emotion begs to cling to what is known. This is why letting go is an act of faith. It forces you to trust what you cannot yet see. It invites you to step into a place where you must rely on truth instead of fear, on conviction instead of comfort, on purpose instead of impulse. Faith becomes visible in the moment you release your grip. Before that, it's just theory. Many people say they trust, say they believe, say they are willing to follow truth whenever it leads. But that belief is tested in the moment they must release something dear, familiar, or long held. Obedience is not proven by good intentions or strong feelings. It is proven when you choose to let go even while your heart trembles. That is where real faith is forged, not in the ease of understanding, but in the tension of surrender. Letting go is an act of obedience because it demands alignment with what is right, not what feels comfortable. Comfort tempts you to remain in places that no longer serve your growth. Comfort whispers excuses, wait a little longer, hold on just in case, just endure it, maybe it will change. But obedience calls you to respond to truth, not convenience. It calls you to release bitterness even before the apology comes. It calls you to step away from compromise even before a new path appears. It calls you to break ties with behaviors, habits, or relationships that pull you in the wrong direction, even when the cost of that decision feels heavy. Obedience is often quiet. It is not dramatic. It does not always come with applause or immediate reward. Sometimes obedience looks like walking away alone. Sometimes it means saying no when others pressure you to say yes. Sometimes it means releasing something precious, trusting that if it was truly meant for your future, it will return in its right form and timing. And sometimes obedience means letting go of your own expectations of how life should look, how certain people should act, or how quickly things should change. Letting go also reveals the difference between desire and direction. Desire alone cannot guide you because desire is easily shaped by fear, nostalgia, or insecurity. Direction, however, comes from alignment with what is right, what strengthens the soul rather than weakens it. Letting go may feel like losing something you desperately want, but in truth, it is often the clearing of a path toward what you were created to become. Desire clings, but direction liberates. Desire reaches back for what is fading, but direction moves forward toward what is unfolding. The act of letting go is also an act of humility. It means admitting that you are not self-sufficient, that you cannot carry the weight of everything, that you do not possess the wisdom to orchestrate every detail of your life perfectly. Humility acknowledges that some things must be surrendered precisely because you were never meant to bear them. Control is exhausting. Pride is heavy. Fear is suffocating. These burdens crush a person slowly, layer by layer. Humility lifts them by opening the hands and releasing the very things that pride insists on holding. Humility also recognizes that letting go is not a sign of failure. Many people refuse to release something because they fear it means they have wasted time, or loved the wrong thing, or made the wrong decision. But letting go does not erase your past. It clarifies your future. It allows you to honor what once was without being trapped by it. It reminds you that growth sometimes requires pruning, and pruning is not punishment. It is preparation. Letting go is also an act of trust in timing. You cannot rush healing. You cannot speed up growth. You cannot drag dead seasons into new ones and expect life to flourish. Some things have to be released simply because their time has ended. Clinging to them does not keep them alive. It only drains your energy and clouds your vision. Trusting timing means understanding that not everything lost is a tragedy, and not everything kept is a blessing. Sometimes the greatest protection comes in the form of release. Sometimes the greatest gift is the closing of a door you kept trying to force open. Obedience in letting go also demands perseverance. You do not let go once, you let go repeatedly. The mind tries to return to what is familiar. The heart tries to resurrect what has ended. Old fears whisper again, old wounds ache again, old patterns try to reclaim their place. Letting go is not a single moment. It is a daily decision, a choice to return to truth, to silence the lies, to resist the pull of the past, to focus on what builds rather than what binds. Perseverance strengthens your faith, because each repeated act of letting go becomes a declaration. I will not return to what breaks me. This process transforms you. In the beginning, letting go feels like loss. It feels like standing on unsteady ground, like being stripped of security, like stepping into the unknown with trembling steps. But as time passes, as obedience becomes lifestyle rather than obligation, you begin to feel the weight lift. You begin to breathe easier. You begin to see clearly. You begin to recognize that release was never meant to harm you, but to free you. Growth emerges where once there was only fear. Strength rises where once you felt weak. Wisdom develops where once confusion ruled. You come to understand that surrender was not the end of your freedom. It was the beginning of it. Letting go also teaches you to value what truly matters. When your hands are full of things that burden, distract, or drain you, you cannot receive anything new. You cannot invest in what is life, giving because your energy is consumed by what is life, taking. Letting go empties your hands so that they can be filled with purpose, peace, clarity, and direction. It removes the clutter that keeps you from recognizing what is truly valuable. You begin to see yourself differently. You begin to see others with more compassion. You begin to see your path with more discernment. You learn to prioritize truth over temporary pleasure, purpose over convenience, and integrity over comfort. Letting go is also an act of courage. It requires the bravery to confront your own fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear of loneliness, the fear of regret, the fear of making the wrong choice, the fear of losing what has become part of your identity. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move forward despite fear. And every time you let go of something that hinders you, you reclaim part of your courage. You reclaim part of your strength. You reclaim part of your identity. You reclaim part of your destiny. There is something deeply powerful about the moment a person finally decides to let go. It is the moment the struggle shifts. It is the moment your heart stops fighting for what is not meant for it and begins preparing for what is. It is the moment your mind stops trying to control outcomes and begins seeking clarity. It is the moment your spirit stops living in the past and begins embracing possibility. Letting go does not weaken you. It refines you, it shapes you, it purifies your motives and sharpens your values. It clears the noise and reveals what is essential. In time, you look back and see the wisdom in the release. You see that holding on would have led to more pain. You see that obedience saved you from paths you did not realize were destructive. You see that what felt like loss was actually protection. You see that surrender was not the end of the story, but the turning point. And you recognize that letting go was one of the deepest acts of faith you ever made, not because it was easy, but because it required everything in you to trust what you could not yet see. Letting go is an act of faith and obedience because it calls you to step into a life that is not shaped by fear, not controlled by insecurity, not ruled by the past, and not hindered by burdens that were never meant to be your identity. It calls you to live with open hands, steady heart, and clear mind. It calls you to trust that surrender is not a collapse but a release, one that reveals strength, restores clarity, and opens the door to a life no longer defined by what you cling to, but by what you are becoming.